Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about The Summer Hikaru Died, Season 1, Episode 4. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, let's start with, was it Asako? I had to look up the cast names, because I think it's Osako, and I believe her friend is Yuki. I meant to talk about this last episode, there's that little moment at the end of the episode when they're talking to Yoshiki before he goes to see Hikaru after everything went down. And I was kind of getting this vibe. I was like, I wonder if there's something between them, or at least one. It's interesting because she gets called out in this episode. She talks about, one of the boys called me out, and you think it's going to be a confession thing. But it's like, no, he challenged her to an arm wrestling competition and she destroyed him. So that doesn't mean anything necessarily, but it seems like she's probably kind of like, what would you call her? Kind of like that. She's probably very tomboyish anyway. If I had to compare her to anyone, she's kind of got, if you're familiar with Persona 4, she's got Chie energy to some extent. So, but what's interesting though is obviously she could tell something was near the train tracks, and she was like, hey, wouldn't go near the train tracks. Now she's like, well, I trust your instincts. You're usually right about this. And so that comes full circle at the end of the episode because what's her name? Is it Rie or Ray? Kureye Bayashi. Bayashi. I'm going to struggle with that the entire time. I can't remember how you, pronounce her first name. It's either way, tangents and all that aside, she shows up at the train tracks, and that thing, whatever's there, starts acting up. And it seemed I don't know if she exercised it or at the very least tempered it down, it's still there but she knocked it out and locked it in place, or did she actually do something to it? It's hard to tell, but she even says, I shouldn't be fooling around. And then we get a flashback to, I think, the time her now late husband ended up hurting their child. I thought at the time, I interpreted it maybe her husband was a alcoholic, not a good dude, and he hurt their child. It's not until someone else pointed it out last episode that they were kind of implying well, maybe her husband was possessed. I didn't necessarily click that. I mean, in the context of her reaching out to Yoshiki about someone near you being possessed and stuff like that, it would make sense. But like I said, I just assumed it was an abusive husband, or he was an alcoholic who was abusive. Whatever the case may be, I didn't interpret it as he might be possessed thing. But that is a possibility to kind of be interpreted. And obviously, thinking maybe that's also why she's kind of very all on about these spirits, because a spirit was responsible for what happened to her son, and so she's a lot more on top of it. But even saying I shouldn't be fooling around like this, it makes me wonder, is she kind of thinking to herself she probably doesn't want to make a move because Yoshiki, because I mean maybe she feels even if I get involved, I can't do anything, because once again, we don't even know if she killed this spirit, exorcised it, or whether she just kind of nullified it for a bit, hey, it's creeping up, it's reaching out, and she just kind of gave it a good tap to kind of weaken it or something like that, but she wasn't able to dispel it. Like I said, we don't have the full context to what she did in that moment. So my point is she might not be powerful enough to deal with the thing inside of Hikaru. So it might be a thing of she's biding her time because she knows whatever this is, she's I need to just let it play out. I hope Yoshiki's okay, but I gotta let it play out, and bide my time until I'm ready or in a better position. If I can give him enough time to maybe see the same for what it is, he'll be more reluctant to stay by its side, and that's when I can potentially help do something, because we don't know, especially because the way they showed it, it's her holding her child and the door was open, the doors were open a little bit, so it feels something monstrous was on the other side. So I don't know. I'm interested to learn more about her story and circumstances and what role she's going to play going forward, because it seems she's not involved with all the stuff that's going on with Nanuki, which I'm so curious what's the difference between Nanuki and Anuki, because they have said those two, it sounds they're referent, I'm wondering if it's almost supposed to be a thing where different groups have a different name for it, maybe Nanuki is the more negative name for it. Anuki is meant to be maybe the more worshipy name given to it. Kind of different religions, God actually has a name, so what if it's something like that? But in this case, it's but it's the difference. One name is a good name and worshipy name, and the other one, It's almost like one's like the heaven name and one's the hell name given to it. Like I know, hopefully that's making sense. I guess it just depends on the perspective. But we have on this is like the second or third time we've heard two separate names, kind of implying it's referencing the same thing. Not unless they are two different entities, but whatever the case may be. What I think is kind of interesting, and I think this kind of shows progress that the thing inside of Hikaru has made, is that he's now able to like feed the cat, like because the cat got near him last time in episode 1 and it freaked out. Now, to be fair, he is bribing it with like the treat is called like squeeze treat, which I think is interesting. Which I'm sure you could look for an extra metaphor of like, well, the thing inside of Hikaru is kind of like a amoeba-ish blob thing. But yeah, like the cat's nearby. He's like, "Oh, I wonder can I pet it?" And he pokes its stomach, and it's like, "That's not how you pet it." And he kind of feels bad, and he's just kind of like, "Oh man, He's like, "Oh, like after what happened last episode, he's just like, oh, that like I get excited, and that what comes out of me comes out of me." Which I'm like, it also feels like once again, I'm like, I don't know if I'm reading too much into what could be interpreted as innuendos of like, oh, I get excited and something kind of fluid like comes out of me. I'm like, there are undertones that I'm like, because I know what the undertones of this are, I don't know if I'm reading way too much into like, are these meant to be as innuendo-ish as they are? But Yoshi's takeaway is like, oh, he's actually trying, like he's trying to be better about after what happened. And it's like, I think it is reflected the fact that the cat didn't like freak out. In fact, the cat felt comfortable enough to let his guard down to go nearby and shit. So I think that's something it's something wild where it's just like you're going through the trouble of showing and animating the cat taking a shit. I'm like, that feels so unnecessary, but it's just like, it's okay. I don't know, maybe it's something straight out of the manga, but just knowing like whether that's in the manga or that's just something they did for the anime, I highly doubt it. But I'm like, if that's in the manga, it's like it just seems so interesting to go through the trouble of animating. But I guess it's like, hey, you got to see all facets of life because this is all new to Hikaru. So it's like, hey, I'm watching this cat poop, just the little things in life. So I guess that's what it's supposed to mean in the grand scheme of things. Also, I love the little choir thing. It feels like their music teacher's just like, oh, come on, guys, get better. Because it just seems like, I guess they're not making enough progress and he's just kind of disappointed in them or whatever. So, all the while that's happening, Hikaru and Yoshiki are hanging out, and we hear like Karu is like begging her mom, like, oh, I want to wear yukata, I want to go to the summer festival. But it's like, oh, we'd have to go to like your aunt to kind of have that like changed and stuff, and Hikaru's so excited to go to the festival. We still don't know what Karu's situation is, like why she isn't going to school and stuff like that. The small town being what it is and people whispering about stuff. Someone else had pointed this out too about the whole like, well, like people being able to talk and be like this and that. Like everyone's in everyone else's business because it's such a small village that it kind of leans into the whole like, if you ever get found out for being gay, it's like it's going to spread like wildfire. We kind of will get into that a little bit later on. So we don't know what her circumstances are, but people are bad-mouthing the family and being like, oh my God, like what kind of mother doesn't let her child go to school? I'm like, we don't know what that situation is. I don't know if she's sick. Like we don't know the answer to it. Like maybe something happened that makes her a little fearful to go to school. And because like I think that's some of the arguments her husband and her like Yoshiki and Karu's like mom and dad were arguing about some of that. But like the fact is they haven't really pushed it makes me wonder like what that's all about. But Hikaru is enjoying himself at the festival, and I think it means a lot for Karu to kind of get dragged along too. Like it's kind of this sweet thing of like Hikaru pulling her one way and she's holding on to her brother, dragging him along with the other arm. It's kind of nice because we don't really know what their relationship is, but we see that she is like a very like timid, meekish child, and I'm curious, if that just like maybe that's also because she might just have like social anxiety because it doesn't seem like she does well around people, so that might also be a reason why she doesn't go to school, just because like she like can't like without like having like an anxiety attack or something. Like I don't know, I'm probably like projecting a lot onto that, but either way, while that's all going down, we have the three kind of, I don't know what their positions are in the village, but they're talking about the whole thing, and they start bringing up Hikaru. Basically, his dad dying put Hikaru in a very unfortunate situation. It's like he burdened him with everything by dying, and I was like, oh, because that's when my mind started going like, oh, so is that why Hikaru was in the mountains? Because he was fulfilling the family duty, because as the essentially the head of the family, now that its dad is gone, it's up to him to continue the rituals, because it seemed like it was all because their families are the one bound to Anuki or Nanuki, whatever the case may be, and they have to perform rituals to basically, this thing has been locked away in the mountains for 300 years, and they've kept it going, and it's this rumor and stuff like that, and only certain people know of its existence. But even one of the trio was like, oh, how do we even know that thing actually exists? So, but I guess it's been the boogeyman for their village for the past 300 years. And I guess like maybe more people in the past did know, but over the years it faded into obscurity, into legend and fairy tale. And there's only a select few who still believe, who still know. So, the main guy who was like, yo, my dad's freaking out thinking he's next, and Matsura are seem like to be one of the few other elders left that know about it. And once again, that's why I was bringing up Kurebayashi. Like, it seems like she's unrelated. Do they just not know of her situation, like her spiritual awareness, or like Asako? Like, the fact is that they're not dragged into this, but obviously Hikaru is, because his family's been involved with this for generations. Because that was something, like I said, I was thinking, like, as the episode was going, I was like, how much did Hikaru know when he went into the mountains? But it's like, well, enough to have that thing with him that's supposed to ward off spirits. So he went into it knowing, so he went up there to do his obligations as a member of his family. And then Tanaka shows up. And, he's asking questions because he thinks it's interesting. He points out a lot of interesting things. It's like, this is a very small village. It's connected to another small town. And there's all these different areas nearby. And he's like, all these other areas have a whole bunch of churches up the wazoo. But then when you get to this village, it doesn't have any churches, or the town/village. You only have a single shrine. So he's like, so what are you worshiping if that's the case? Like, if it's not even a church, it's a shrine, what are you guys worshiping? And it seems like Nanuki comes up. But like the main guy, every time like Nanuki was said, he was telling the guy, yeah, oh shit, yo, dude, shut up. Because it's like, whatever their village thing is, he doesn't want them. Because it's like, whatever they're worshiping as a god probably is more like a devil. And maybe they got benefits from it, and the only way they can keep those benefits if they keep that thing locked up. Because it might be a thing of generations ago, they got something from this thing, and they captured a god or a devil or a demon or something, and they've been kind of, by keeping it locked up, they're able to kind of have some prosperity here. And I mean, I'm so curious, like, once again, so much can get lost over generations that you forget, like, this might have started as one thing, but over the generations, it turned into something else. I'll bring it up with, like, the Dandadan situation. Without going into spoilers, in case you're not caught up with the anime, there's kind of a situation with the early episodes where it's kind of like, we're dealing with it in these first 4 episodes, where it's kind of like, hey, fear allowed certain people to believe a certain thing, and they've continued it for generations, but then you find out, hey, the thing you've been doing is complete and utter BS. It's not actually doing the thing it's supposed to do. So that's why I'm curious if that's here, where like maybe this thing was captured or sealed away for 300 years ago for different reasons, for a while. Maybe they don't even know the real reasons why anymore, because it could have been lost to time and stuff like that. We don't know. And they also kind of stray away from even going into details about what the actual ritual is. It seems like they talk in generalities around Tanaka because it is like a secret that they don't want out. And I wonder, is it just because Tanaka's an outsider, or is it specifically because he's an outsider working for the company that he works for, and they don't want them in their business? Because it's like, it feels like their job is like, we want to seal this thing back up into the mountains, but Tanaka's job seems more like, I'm actually here to exercise/kill this thing. So, because he ended up finding another one of those things, but like, instead of a small one, it's a bigger one. And so he got to implying, like, once again, Hikaru went up there for that purpose, because like, this is meant to make it so that you could get further up the mountain without it's going to ward off even more powerful spirits. So I don't know if that's like where he ended up finding that, because I guess it wasn't on Hikaru, because I guess Hikaru only had, Well, not unless Hikaru did have the bigger one too, but the smaller one was the only one that was left on his pack. Maybe he ended up dropping the bigger one when he fell. Maybe that's what that's supposed to imply. Because I think he kind of implied like he checked that mountainous area, I think. But I thought it was so neat when they went to the shrine or into that area to get shaved ice, and Hikaru touches that barrier. And I love that special effect. It almost looks like a bubble popping. It was like, bloop. And in that moment, Tanaka shot up because he was like, it's something touched the barrier. And even Hikaru didn't push his way through because he saw his hand and it was revealing his real form. He's like, no, you guys go on ahead. He's like, a barrier? Who put this here? It's like a pain in the ass. And so he waited outside, but by the time Tanaka got there, they were already long gone. So, which we found some interesting things out about Tanaka, that they were like, oh, can you repair the barrier? He's like, it's not that easy. They're like, well, why don't you just put one around the village? He's like, basically to summon these barriers, I have to sacrifice one of my organs to do it. I was like, Jesus Christ, dude. But it's like, hey, it's like alchemy and sometimes magic. There's always a price to pay for it. And he's like, it's because he doesn't want to go the route his company wants him to or recommends, which I'm like, ooh, what's that mean? Like, if it costs you one of your organs to do it, I'm wondering if the general consensus is like, hey, basically sacrifice a person to do what you need to do. Like, I don't know if that's his company's way of like, for the greater good, we will sacrifice people. It feels like that might be the implications Tanaka was trying to get across of like, he doesn't want to go with their methods because he's just like, that's why I approach it my way. But, Jesus Christ, like, how many organs have you sacrificed in the process of doing all? I wonder, is that also why his body's the way it is? Like, because last episode I was thinking like Korebayashi's son that she said has a wound. I brought it up. I thought it was Tanaka because he has that mark on his neck, and we still didn't see what the actual wound is that her son like received. So I was still thinking that might still be her son, but I don't know. So I'm wondering what other wounds he has, like from the like. Is it just his organs, or maybe if he's doing something different, it manifests itself in like pieces of flesh being taken from him? Like, it's that, I don't know. We'll have to wait to see. There's just so many like swerving questions going around. There's also this neat moment between Hikaru and Yoshiki where Hikaru is talking about like, ooh, like what is even, was it Blue Hawaii, like the flavor of this particular shaved ice? And Yoshiki was like, well, actually it's all the same flavor. Really, it's no different. It's all the same syrup. The only difference is by changing the color, you change the flavor. And then Hikaru asked like, what about me? I look the same, but do I feel the same? And he was like, no. And it actually made Hikaru happy. And he's like, I don't know why. It's like, I think I do. Because there's a part of Hikaru, that the thing inside of him being like, wait, you like me for me. Like, so it's kind of like, yeah, I might look the same, but I feel different, and that's okay. I think for him, it's like, Yoshiki's become a lot more accepting of him, and it isn't just viewing you as you are Hikaru. He's not deluding himself anymore. He knows he's not Hikaru. I know you look like him, but I accept you as not being Hikaru. Like, I think he had like a catharsis at the end of last episode because of it. How he's viewing this situation. And obviously he's thinking back to what Kurebayashi had said to him last episode about being around Hikaru. And he'd even ask him like, yo, like, how did you know I wasn't Hikaru? And he's like, because I found your body. I was like, wait, what? So when Hikaru went missing in the mountains for that week, Yoshiki went to find him. Even though his mom told him not to do it, but he went off on his own and he found Hikaru's body, but Hikaru was already dead. I was like, interesting. Because when the thing said like, yo, I found him, he was like already like in the process of dying. But by the time Yoshiki found Hikaru, he was already dead. But the thing explains like, yeah, like I must have been almost in stasis afterwards because it took a while. It took a couple days to recover Hikaru's body after everything. Because Yoshiki like was feeling Hikaru's body. Is like, he's dead, he's stone, and he's cold, and it's almost like stone, but it's like, right, it's winter, so it probably like, the combination of like rigor mortis, and it kind of preserved that body in such a cold state because of the freezing. And he's like, by the time I like snapped out of it, I was back home, and then I was in bed for days. 'Cause I think for him, it's just like he didn't want to accept reality, and just like he was in autopilot, made his way back home. And then like when he finally like came out like a couple days later, after a couple days, Hikaru was in the hospital. He's like, there was already a couple things that were a little off, but that was the main thing. And it's like, it's something that no one else will be able to notice but me. But even Hikaru's like, the thing inside of him was like, wow, you held on to that for like 6 months? Because we thought like he had his suspicions and stuff like that. And he finally like, oh, maybe it finally compounded to the point he had to ask. It's like, no, he's known, but it was just about not accepting it, not really knowing what to make of it all. And, he even said like, I haven't been able to sleep at night anymore. And then he has that moment where he thinks about him and Hikaru like hanging out. And he talks about how he wants to move away to the city because he hates being in the sticks. Once again, the village where everyone's up your ass about your business. He's like, there's so many people I've been walking by and they're like whispering about my family fighting all the time, which my mom and dad fight all the time. But it's like, it's not the village's damn business, but somehow it is. And so he hates that aspect of it. He wants to get away. There ended up being this conversation about, oh yeah, there was a certain family, was it the Yasuburo family? There was like a big fight there. And it's like, oh yeah, the heir to the family, Yusuke, he's got like some kind of disease or something. And then Yoshiki corrects him like, he doesn't have a disease, he's gay. And it's like, oh, interesting. So I was like, and I guess that's why I was, so that definitely like adds more pressure to Yoshiki's situation, where it's just kind of like feeling what he feels and knowing how other families react. His family's already a bit of a mess, and then like if they ever found out he was gay or interested in boys or men and all, like it would, the same sex, it would just cause so much. So he's just internalizing so much of that. And then even Hikaru was like, hey, instead of going to the city, why don't you come over to my place? Almost like that way you don't have to leave. I want you to kind of stay here with me, And just, you can tell like what that meant for Yoshiki, and then cutting back to him present day crying. Because I think, like I said, he's been in denial up until this point in time, and he's just been deluding himself, trying to pretend like everything's okay. And last episode, that bubble burst, and I think this is the first time he's fully let himself grieve, that he's just like, why did you have to die on me? And Hikaru was like, being like, oh, I'm going to give you space. But he grabs onto him and is like, no, I don't want to be alone right now. But it's like, I need to feel this. I need to accept Hikaru is gone. There's no more pretending. You look like Hikaru. You're not Hikaru. And I accept that. But I think for the first time in 6 months, he's able to properly grieve because he knows his friend is gone. And he has to finally fully accept it, where it's like he's still been, like I said, somewhat in denial up until now, and now it's just like he's finally just let it all go, and I just thought that was such a heartbreaking and powerful moment. But the thing inside Hikaru is like, I will always be here for you, and I will do whatever you ask me to, which I'm like, there's a little sinister undertone there, where it's like, you ask me to do something, I'll do it without hesitation. And we'll see how far that will go, like what Yoshiki could ask of this thing in the future. But we'll see. It might not have to be sinister, but like the look in its face and that sinister undertone to it says a lot. But then like the post-credit scene shows us what happened. From what it seems like, Hikaru just slipped. He was up in the mountain and he came across that tree, the raunchy, sexy tree, and he slipped and got hurt. And for him, it's like, is this really where I'm going to die? He's like, I'm sorry, Dad, I couldn't fulfill my role as the head of the family, which is so sad. And like that trio was talking about, it's sad that he had to like carry such a heavy burden, And then, he's like, I don't want to put Mom through that. It was already enough losing Dad, and now I'm going to put her through that. Also, Hikaru was thinking to himself, like, Yoshiki has no one. I don't want him to be alone. It's like, I don't want to die. And it's just, I want to stay. Anyone. And that's when the thing reached out to him. So its desire to be, it's almost like, and someone else had pointed this out too. The thing is stuck between how Hikaru felt about Yoshiki and how it's starting to feel about him, because it's bound by like Hikaru's desire to stay by Yoshiki's side, did not leave him, but now this thing has kind of grown its own feelings, its own heart to care about Yoshiki, and so it's kind of fulfilling both what Hikaru wanted to stay by his side so he's not alone, but also its own selfish desire of I'm enjoying being human and I want to be by Yoshiki's side, and I'm not going to let anything or anyone kind of get in the way of that. So, some very, very fascinating developments. It's going to be interesting to see where the next episode ends up taking us going forward with all of this. But really, that's all I want to talk about. To the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.